Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so Christmas, it's a time that touches so many of us, right?
Definitely. Huge time of year.
Yeah, and today we want to go a bit beyond just the usual festive stuff. We're aiming to explore its really rich tapestry.
Uh-huh.
We've pulled together a pretty comprehensive look, trying to see Christmas through a wide lens, think cultural meaning, history, how we experience it now, all that.
That's right. We're looking at, well, everything from cultural roots, big historical moments, the traditions we all know and
The
love.
views like the food.
Exactly. Even connections to, like, plants and animals. We're also going to touch on key people, important places, the language we use around it, how it looks globally.
Right, theology, modern trends, the works.
Pretty much.
So our mission really is to give you a more well-rounded picture of Christmas.
Yeah. Digging into those layers.
Exactly, beneath the surface. We want to uncover some surprising bits, and maybe connect some dots that, well, might just shift how you think about it. Okay, let's unpack this. Where should we start? Maybe the core meanings.
Sounds good. So culturally, you've got the timing, right? Around the winter solstice.
Ah, yeah.
And what's interesting there is the really ancient symbolism. Light overcoming darkness. That idea of hope, renewal.
It goes way back.
Yeah, before Christmas as we know it.
Exactly. That symbolism was already potent.
And then, of course, for Christians, the huge religious meanings celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Our sources really underscore that as like the absolute center for believers.
Absolutely central. And building on that, you get this strong theme of, well, generosity, charity, kindness.
The wise men's gifts, maybe. Gold, frankincense, myrrh.
That's a great link. Thinking about how that specific act of giving could be sort of a cornerstone for our whole gift-giving tradition now, it's compelling.
It really is. And it's also just such a powerful family holiday, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The sources really talk about gathering, sharing meals, passing down those traditions. That really resonates.
It does, but it's also important, I think, to acknowledge the secular side, too.
For sure.
For a lot of people, maybe not even religious ones, it's about the cultural stuff. The lights everywhere, Santa, the music you hear constantly.
And the food. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely the food, the seasonal treats. It's all part of that broader cultural experience.
Okay, so that gives us a sense of the meanings today. But let's step back in time. What about the history? How did it evolve?
Well, it's a fascinating path. For starters, the sources point out the Bible doesn't actually give a date for Jesus' birth.
Right, I knew that. So where did December 25th come from?
It seems like it was probably a strategic choice by early Christians. It lined up pretty neatly with major Roman pagan festivals. Think Saturnalia, big feasts, lots of partying, and Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun festival. By choosing a date already associated with celebration and light, it likely made Christianity, a bit more accessible or familiar within that existing culture.
Ah, interesting, like building a cultural bridge almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Then fast forward to the Middle Ages, and Christmas looks quite different again. Much more public, kind of rowdy.
Rowdy.
Yeah, big feasts, games, role reversals sometimes. And traditions like the yule log started getting really embedded than burning a huge log for good luck. And wassailing, too.
Wassailing, that's singing and drinking, right?
Pretty much. Going door to door, singing, offering drinks like cider or ale, hoping for a good harvest. Very communal.
Wow, that sounds very different from a quiet family Christmas now.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which leads to a really surprising twist. The Puritans actually banned Christmas in the 1600s.
Banned it. Seriously, where?
Yep, in parts of England and even in some American colonies like Boston. Our sources say they saw the celebrations as just too unruly, too pagan, and, well, not scriptural.
Hard to imagine Christmas being illegal. So how did we get from that back to, well, this?
The big shift, really, was the Victorian era, the 1800s.
Oh, okay.
And our sources really highlight figures like Charles Dickens. A Christmas Carol, its influence was massive.
Right, Scrooge and Tiny Tim.
Exactly. Dickens really pushed themes of family, morality, generosity, that kind of warm, sentimental feeling. And that really clicked with people at the time, especially with industrialization changing society.
So that's where that sort of heartwarming, family-focused Christmas ideal really comes from.
It played a huge part, yeah. And then moving into the modern era, especially in the U.S., you see traditions solidifying.
How so?
Well, our sources point to things like mass media spreading ideas, marketing becoming more sophisticated.
The Coca-Cola Coca-Cola Santa.
That's the classic example, isn't it? Those 1930s ads really cemented that image of Santa. Plus, national celebrations started creating more of a shared experience across the country.
And it became an official holiday pretty early on.
Relatively, yeah. Federal holiday in the U.S. since 1870, according to our sources.
Okay, so we've covered the roots, the history. Let's talk traditions, the stuff that really makes it feel like Christmas for most people.
Right, where do we even start? Decorations are huge, obviously.
The tree.
The tree is central, that evergreen symbol of life in winter. And that tradition, our sources say, came from Germany. German immigrants brought it over.
Interesting. And wreaths, lights.
Yeah, wreaths, twinkling lights, ornaments, often with personal stories attached, right?
Yeah.
And nativity scenes depicting the birth of Jesus, very important for many.
And the gifts
Yeah.
under the tree, waiting for Christmas morning.
The anticipation. And the figure behind the gifts, of course, is Santa Claus.
Such a fascinating figure. Part history, part folklore.
Totally. Our sources trace him back to the real St. Nicholas, a 4th century bishop known for being incredibly kind and generous.
Right.
But then that image blended with other European figures like Sinterklaas from the Netherlands, who arrived by boat.
Sinterklaas, okay.
And Father Christmas from Britain, more of a symbol of feasting and merriment. It all sort of merged together.
Into the Santa we know today. What about Advent calendars? They seem really popular now.
Yeah, they're a more recent thing, relatively speaking. Just a nice way to count down the days, often with little treats or pictures. Builds excitement.
And for many, they're really important religious practices, too.
Definitely. Midnight Mass is a big one for many Christians.
Yeah.
Very solemn, very meaningful.
And caroling.
Caroling, yeah. Going around singing, spreading cheer, and reading the nativity story, usually from the Gospels of Matthew or Luke.
It's also a time you see a lot of charity, don't you think?
Absolutely. Our sources really emphasize that. Toy drives, food banks, working overtime, people volunteering. It really brings out that spirit of giving.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. Music and food. The soundtrack and the flavors of Christmas. What about the music?
Oh, the music is incredibly diverse. You've got everything from, ancient carols with deep religious meaning.
Like Silent Night.
Exactly. Silent Night, O Holy Night, Hark, the Herald Angels Sing, the First Noel, timeless classics. Then there's gospel contemporary pop hits. You can't escape them.
Tell me about it. Mariah Carey.
Huh. Yeah, All I Want for Christmas Is You is mentioned, of course. Also, Jingle Bell Rock, which, fun fact, our sources say was actually written for Thanksgiving originally.
In a way, Thanksgiving.
Yep. And White Christmas, still the biggest selling single ever. Last Christmas, Feliz Navidad. The list goes on.
And specific artists known for Christmas music.
Our sources call out Pentatonics. Their a cappella stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
And Mannheim Steamroller and Trans-Siberian Orchestra with those big rock orchestra sounds.
Okay, my mouth is watering already. Let's talk food. What are the classics?
Okay, the big meal usually centers around a roast, right? Turkey, ham, maybe goose.
With all the trimmings.
Gotta have the trimmings.
Yeah.
Stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, cranberry sauce. And then pies for dessert. Pumpkin, apple, pecan are the big ones mentioned.
Making me hungry. What about baking? So many Christmas cookies.
Oh, yeah. Gingerbread is huge, often decorated. Sugar cookies cut into festive shapes. Yule log cakes, the bûche de Noël.
Right, it looks like a log.
Exactly. Fruitcake gets a mention, love it or hate it. And stolen, that German fruit bread.
And drinks. What do people typically drink?
Eggnog comes up a lot, of course. Hot cocoa, mulled wine, nice and warm and spicy. Spiced cider, too, very comforting.
And food varies so much depending on where you are, right?
Totally. Our sources give examples like tamales and Latinx families, the Feast of the Seven Fishes for Italian Americans.
7 fishes, wow.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Also tourtière, that French-Canadian meat pie, and panettone, the Italian sweetbread. Lots of delicious diversity.
Let's bring nature into it. Plants and animals associated with Christmas. Evergreens are obvious.
Right, symbolizing life in winter. That's why we have trees, wreaths, garlands, bringing green inside when everything outside is bare.
And mistletoe, the kissing tradition.
Ah, yes, mistletoe. Symbol of peace and love. And apparently the kissing part might come from Norse mythology. Something about peace and reconciliation.
Interesting. What about holly? The prickly leaves, red
Yeah.
berries.
Holly's got layers too. Our sources say for Christians, the sharp leaves can represent the crown of thorns, and the red berries, drops of blood. But it had pagan significance before that too.
And poinsettias. They're everywhere at Christmas.
That vibrant red plant, it's actually from Mexico, our sources say. Blooms in winter there, so it became a Christmas staple.
And animals. Reindeer, obviously.
Reindeer are number one, thanks to Santa, but also donkeys and lambs from the Nativity story. And birds like robins and cardinals often show up in Christmas imagery, along with owls sometimes.
Okay, let's talk people. Key figures, cultural icons. We mentioned St. Nicholas already.
Right, the 4th century bishop, the inspiration, known for his generosity.
And how he evolved into Santa Claus.
Yeah, that blend of St. Nicholas, the Dutch Sinterklaas, the British Father Christmas, morphing into the Kris Kringle or Santa we know with the workshop and reindeer.
And the central religious figure, of course.
Jesus of Nazareth. His birth is the reason for the season for Christians, as the sources emphasize.
Beyond them, we have all those fictional characters who feel so real at Christmas.
Oh, yeah. The Grinch. I gotta love the Grinch. Rudolph, Frosty the Snowman.
Buddy the Elf.
Buddy the Elf, yes. And Scrooge, obviously, his whole transformation, they're all part of the cultural fabric now.
And the movies and specials. They're
Yeah.
like traditions themselves.
Totally. Our sources list so many classics. Home Alone, Elf, The Polar Express, The Santa Claus.
Charlie Brown Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Yeah, watching these is just part of Christmas for millions.
Okay, places.
Yep.
Where in the world is significant for Christmas?
Well, Bethlehem, obviously. Traditional birthplace of Jesus.
Yeah.
Hugely important historically and religiously.
Right. And the mythical place.
The North Pole. Santa's home base. Pure magic for kids, right?
Totally. What about real places known for Christmas celebrations?
New York City gets a big mention. The Rockefeller Center tree, the Fifth Avenue window displays. Very iconic. And Lapland in Finland. They've really leaned into the Santa Claus connection. It's a major tourist spot for that Christmas experience.
And those European Christmas markets. They look amazing.
Oh, yeah. Our sources highlight those, especially in Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic. Very traditional, lots of crafts, food, mulled wine. Great atmosphere.
The language we use also shifts a bit at Christmas time. Greetings.
You hear Merry Christmas a lot, obviously, but also Happy Holidays is a more inclusive option, and season's greetings.
And religious phrases?
Things like joy to the world, peace on earth, goodwill to all, oh come, let us adore him. Very tied to carols and the religious meaning.
And fun formal stuff.
Yeah, like talking about the Christmas spirit, Santa's naughty or nice list, Yuletide cheer, that kind of thing.
And translations. Always good to know a few.
Our sources give the common ones. Feliz Navidad for Spanish.
Große Noel?
French, right. Buon Natal in Italian, and Frohe Weihnachten in German.
It's amazing how differently Christmas is celebrated around the world. Any cool examples?
Loads. Our sources mention Las Posadas in Mexico. It's a 9-day thing before Christmas, reenacting Mary and Joseph looking for shelter.
Sounds beautiful.
That does sound meaningful. What else?
In the Philippines, there's Simbang Gabi, 9 early morning masses, and a giant lantern festival. Looks incredible.
Whoa.
Sweden has St. Lucia's Day on December 13th, candlelight processions, special saffron buns. And Ethiopia celebrates Christmas, Jenna, on January 7th with fasting and wearing white.
And down under, summer Christmas.
Exactly. Australia, BBQs, beach parties, outdoor carols by candlelight. Very different vibe.
And Orthodox Christmas.
Also typically January 7th in places like Ukraine and Eastern Europe, often involves a special 12-dish feast and nativity plays called Vertep.
Good to remember, Christmas isn't the only holiday around this time.
Very important point. Our sources mention Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights. Kwanzaa, celebrating African heritage and unity, starts December 26th.
And the Winter Solstice, or Yule, an ancient pagan holiday celebrating the return of light. A lot of Christmas customs actually have roots there. Plus, New Year's, Lunar New Year. It's a busy season for many cultures.
Let's touch on theology briefly. Key points.
Well, the main nativity story comes from the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. That's where you read about the birth.
And the wise men's gifts. Gold, frankincense, myrrh. Symbolic.
Highly symbolic, according to the sources. Gold for kingship, frankincense for divinity, myrrh hinting at death and burial. Powerful stuff. And it notes that shepherds were the first to hear the news. Humble beginnings.
There's sometimes confusion about terms like immaculate conception, right?
Yes, good clarification.
Yeah.
Our sources point out immaculate conception refers to Mary being conceived without original sin, according to Catholic doctrine. It's not about Jesus' virgin birth.
Gotcha.
And while Christmas is huge culturally, Easter the resurrection is actually the most theologically important day in Christianity. Christmas is just more widely celebrated, perhaps.
Okay, bringing it to today. The modern Christmas landscape. It's big business, right?
Oh, massive. Our sources call it the largest retail holiday in the U.S. Billions and billions spent. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all the ads. It's a huge economic engine.
But there's pushback against that, isn't there? More talk about simplifying.
Definitely. You hear more about minimalism, sustainable gifting, focusing on experiences over stuff. Mindful spending is a growing theme.
And environmental concerns. Trees, decorations.
Yeah, more focus on eco-friendly options. Are plastic decorations bad? What about tree farms versus artificial trees? People are thinking more about the impact. Using recyclable wrapping paper, stuff like that.
And we should acknowledge it's not always a happy time for everyone.
Crucial point. Our sources mention this too. For some, it brings up loneliness, grief, financial stress. It can be really tough. Thankfully, there's more awareness around mental wellness during the holidays now.
As we wrap up, there are some really nice quotes in our source material.
Yeah, like Edna Ferber, Christmas isn't a season, it's a feeling. Captures it well, I think.
And Helen Steiner Rice. Peace on earth will come to stay when we live Christmas every day. A nice aspiration.
Then there's Dr. Seuss from the Grinch story. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store.
Ah, perfect. Always relevant.
And a simple one from Brigham Young, love the giver more than the gift.
Good reminder. Okay, finally, any weird or surprising facts? Those tidbits are always fun.
Okay, yeah, some great ones. We mentioned the Coca-Cola Santa shaping the image.
Right.
And Jingle Bells being written for Thanksgiving still blows my mind a bit.
Me too. What else?
The Puritans banning it in Boston, 1659 to 1681. That's wild.
Definitely.
The Statue of Liberty was technically a Christmas gift from France to the U.S., the biggest one ever.
Wow. Okay.
Japan's tradition of eating KFC for Christmas, purely down to a really successful marketing campaign decades ago.
Get out of here, KFC.
Yep. And it's huge there now. Also, over 90% of Americans celebrate Christmas somehow, even many non-Christians. Shows its cultural weight. And we mentioned the tree coming from Germany, brought by immigrants. Took a while to catch on widely.
What a journey. We've really covered a lot of ground. Ancient roots, global traditions, modern issues.
It really is multifaceted, isn't it? So much history, culture, and personal meaning wrapped up in one holiday.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener. As you think about all this, maybe consider which parts of Christmas really resonate with you personally, and how those meanings might shift or, be reinterpreted today, given everything we've talked about, its complex past and all its different faces now.
Yeah. Food for thought.
Definitely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.